Yeah, so I'll give you my definition of patriarchy first. It's a historic definition. It means rule of the father. I often will short phrase this to from the father. Usually it operates around something which is patrilineal lineage rather than matrilineal lineage, though not always. You can have patriarchies where there's matrilineal lineage. You can find this in Judaism and other places like this. When I talk about patriarchy, and broadly speaking, at least in modernity and in the last 100 years, about men being in charge of general systems. We could just say men being in charge of general systems, head of the household, head of the family, things like this. My view is that patriarchy is always going to end up being the default, especially the more feminism there is. You'll push more people into the patriarchy role, and here's why. Because of force doctrine. Force doctrine is a doctrine which I came up with, which tries to describe a phenomenon which you yourself are going to have to concede is true. That half of the world right now, if men decide to, they can basically exterminate every single woman inside of their nations, and there's not a damn thing women can do about it. We can find this in most of the Middle Eastern nations. We can find this basically anywhere that we look, right? They can't actually do anything about it. Also, when it comes to rights, rights are a social construction, product of the mind. Because of that, they are not inherent. And since this is the case, force is what is the practical applicator. And if men decided to, by force, take away women's rights, women cannot do anything about it. The opposite is not true. If women wanted to take away men's rights and men didn't want to let them, they could not. And because of this force doctrine application, women's rights all come from men, not inherently from themselves. Therefore, feminism is a lie, complete lie. That's force doctrine. I don't know if you have anything to say about it.
Well, aside from the fact that that is genuinely a terrifying idea, I think that the idea that men could just take away our rights and wipe us away is why feminism is necessary, is because we are trying to get enough men, I suppose, on our side, if you think about it in terms of like a military occupation, so that that wouldn't happen, because I think that it is possible for men to take away our rights at a blanket pace. But I don't agree with your conclusion based off that premise, though. I don't believe that women inherently don't have rights that is given to us by men. And the reason why is because I believe that all human beings inherently should have equality and human dignity, which is although I'm not Catholic, it's a term that was very much focused on in my Catholic high school. I went to public school and then Catholic high school. But it's an axiom? About human dignity?
It's just axiomatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like important though to me, because I think that because the societies that we have created have necessitated the need, or have created the need for laws and for structure in government. And so there are many philosophers that have talked about how important it is to have government, right? But because of the fact that men can take it away does not mean that men thus give to us, right? Like, men are not gods. It is something that is inherent to each of us, that we should have the ability to live and self-govern, have autonomy. And I think the fact that men could take it away actually goes to my point about how a lot of them do, and a lot of them try to take our autonomy and make us feel unsafe and harm us, which you were previously refuting, but actually seems like you agree with me on that it's a possibility for men to do that.
No, it's descriptively true. I'm not giving an ought, I'm giving a descriptive reality.
But because it's a descriptive reality,
the truth is that you appealed to patriarchy.
I have no idea what, I have not said appeal to patriarchy. What are you talking about?
When you said the whole goal is to get more men on our side, you're appealing to a patriarchy.
Well, it's not the whole goal, but is a goal. Yes, I should correct myself.
And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to appeal to the very demographic which can take away your rights at any time, conceding that if you do not have them on your side, you cannot maintain your rights. That is not ever true of men, which is why you'll always end up with a default patriarchy, especially the more feminist push. I don't know if you're looking at the modern world
it's the modern world, because it's not necessarily a default.
It's always going to be a default.
But in a lot of tribes, they were very matriarchal, and like women were at the head of the family.
There's never been a matriarch in the world.
That is not true at all.
Give me one.
Okay, I will look it up for you.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'll refute it. Watch.
Well, indigenous people largely have.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'm going to refute it.
I think you should just use the term indigenous.
I think you should just use the term Indian. I don't see any problem with it at all.
Oh, I think they do.
I don't think so. Indians themselves call themselves Indians often.
Indigenous people in the United States do not call themselves Indians.
Yes, they do. Just like black people call themselves black people, not African American. What are you talking about? Do you think that all black people call themselves African American?
This is a moot point, so I'm not going to even go into this with you.
Well, you're the one who wanted to tell police to say that I had to say Native American instead of Indian.
So basically, I'm pulling up the matriarchs for you. And there are obviously a number of societies that have thrived, and there's a whole document, but in China, in Costa Rica, the Bribri people.
Yeah, name one. Any of them that you think is a matriarchy.
Okay.
A matriarchal society.
They have a society with an estimated 12,000 to 35,000 members. That is a matriarchy. And that is Bribri in Costa Rica. Or you could look at there's a Kenyan tribe, that's Umoja, that are all matriarchies. They have women at the helm that are leading their...
Why the Bribri tribe society is often described as matrilineal. It's not actually a matriarchy. Women are the heads of households responsible for passing down culture and land, but the men have the most important role as the authority officers of the tribe. They are the ones who defend, and they have chiefs too, male chief. That's not a matriarchy.
Well, I found a different article. We could just go back and forth all day.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So the Bribri, so this is the intercontinental cry. Bribri, I don't know if you speak Spanish, but Bribri un matriarcado moderno. So I speak a little bit, I'm not like fully fluent. But anyways, and they're talking about how the clan structure means that tribal lineage is passed down through the mother.
Yeah, matrilineally.
Yes, and also in the home, I know the difference.
But if something is matrilineal, doesn't make it a matriarchy.
I know, but they're saying that women in this article play a primary role in government as well. And
yeah,
people.
but not. But see what you did there? You did a smuggle. They play a primary role in government. That doesn't make it a matriarchy.
But it's a system. Do you know what a matriarchy is, though?
Yeah, it would be women broadly in charge of all of the systems.
It's a system of social structure where they hold a lot of power.
They hold the majority power.
And that's what
and the decisions of the men are at their behest in any...
But that's what the article just said of the Bribri tribe.
No,
I don't know. Again, I just found a different article.
Any matriarchy...
I don't know if I should speak to what's going on.
Any matriarchy that I've ever investigated, which is supposedly a matriarchy, we find very quickly that men are in the prominent positions of authority on force, which means that any matriarchy is living at the behest of the men. That's it.
So is your point that men are better then because they have brute force? Or what's your point, that men should be in charge governmentally?
No, my point is I'm not giving an ought. We have to agree first to a descriptor. The descriptive truth is that it is, in fact, the case that women have to appeal to men for all of their rights, period, by your own admission. That's why you're trying to get them on your side. Because if you don't have them, they can basically cage women up if they wanted to, and there's nothing women can do about it.
Right, but that doesn't mean that men are therefore better or should be in charge. I'm confused. What's the actual point, the conclusion that you're making here?
The point here is that men being in charge is obviously and clearly they're very benevolent, because at any time they so choose, they can lock all women up. There's nothing they can do about it. And the reverse is not true, which is so interesting. You're literally at the mercy, women are at the mercy globally and always have been, of men. And yet we're monsterized and demonized by feminists. That's what we're literally considered demons by feminists. You did it by your own admission today with your own stats, trying to make us out to be sexually assaulting monsters. Didn't even know the counter stats.
Didn't say that. Never
said
that.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be, though, from the onlooker's perspective.
I feel like you have these generic talking points that you try to apply to feminists, but I haven't really been very reactive or calling you names. I'm trying not to. I have, but
you have acted exactly like a feminist today, madame.
Okay, but
okay, nobody's going to be confused about that at all.
All right.
The whole snobbery.
I'm not insulted by that.
The whole snobbery towards authority. You're going to do what I want. The finger clap thing. You did the whole feminist trope, the entire thing.
Okay.
But what I would like is a refutation here.
Can I speak now?
Can you agree?
I feel like it's my time.
Can you agree that it is the case that women have to appeal to men for their rights and not the other way around?
I will not ever agree to the fact that we should appeal to men for our rights. I think that is an inherently misogynistic question. Have to?
Have to.
No.
Okay, well then where do rights come from?
They should be inherent to every person, but again, I think I should be able to lead this. So give me a second, because again, you've just been a little bit insulting the last few minutes, so I feel like when that happens, it's just a good change of pace is important. But
I do need to keep it on the topic at hand. But
which again, where were we? Can you repeat the question?
Right. So I asked you where rights come from.
Where rights come from, if you can address that.
Okay, but then I get to speak.
Respond.
More.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but it's on forced doctrine and rights.
Respond. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the fact that we're debating a topic that you came up with is a little bit strange personally, but I was going to say that I think that rights are inherent. I think that they should be related to all people, just like the fact that we are human beings. We shouldn't have to appeal to any person for authority. And again, the fact that men are stronger, bigger, more powerful doesn't mean that they give or take away people's rights. I'm not religious necessarily, but I think if I was, I would probably tell you that I think God is the person that, relates and who gives people their human dignity and rights, but I think it's inherent. I think that we should all have the right to live and be free of violence. And I think that those who offend and try to put people in cages, those are the people that should be jailed. Like, I don't think that that's a blanket statement.
Yeah. So I would just, okay, you keep on saying rights should be inherent. That doesn't tell me anything about where rights come from. Where do rights come from? Where do we ascribe rights?
Well, I think that
ourselves?
you're thinking very like United States, like government centric.
Anywhere. You can pick anywhere on planet. I don't care where you pick.
Okay.
Where
so
are rights coming from?
They are coming from the set of people that are in charge, the government. And to your point, that's the patriarchy. However, I agree.
Okay.
So I concede to that point. However, I'm saying that that does not mean that men, since they create the ability to give people like rights and take it away, that doesn't mean that men it should be that way. It shouldn't. I don't know if that makes sense.
So men have been guaranteeing your rights the entire time you've been alive?
No, that's definitely not true.
Well, I don't understand. I thought that you just
But
said
also, like,
rights come from the government.
but also,
the government
like,
is the patriarchy. The patriarchy then is giving you rights, right?
Right, but like the government isn't inherently like the government is influenced by patriarchy, but it's not like all men making decisions like in the past it was.
Would you say it's mostly in charge by men?
Yeah, but again, like I think that your points that you're making are very misogynistic. Like I think the point of what you're saying
listen,
is like we should be grateful to.
I think the points you're making are very misandrist. I mean, that doesn't tell us.
But I don't hate
anything.
men, so that's not a very good
I don't hate
insult.
women.
Okay, but your question inherently is rooted in the fact that you think that there is male superiority and that men are in charge.
Descriptively, men are stronger than women. Yeah. Descriptively.
Yes.
You're not going to argue that point, right?
On average, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, on average. Well, I mean, it's a strong average, though.
Sure.
Yeah, like, I mean, teenage soccer teams are beating, female pro player teams, right?
Sure.
You agree
yes.
that that's the case? Okay, great. So if that's the case, and we can agree, and you agree that the governments of the world are patriarchal, then you have to concede that the patriarchy is giving you your rights right now.
I will never concede that. And the reason why is because I think that is rooted in the idea that women should be grateful. Like you're telling me that I should essentially be grateful to you for the fact that I'm not in a cage right now and that someone's not assaulting me as we speak. Like that does not mean that I should be grateful to you.
How about just your right to free speech and the fact that it's enforced by men? The patriarchy is the ones giving you that by your own admission.
Listen, so my theory is the way it should be. This is what I think. This is the way that it was before we had colonization and all the imperialism and stuff. There's a blanket statement, right? Or there's a blanket right to life, to autonomy, to all these things, right, that are just given to you by the nature of being human. And there are certain entities and people and oppressive regimes that then come in and they try to take those things away from you.
Yeah,
now,
warring tribe theory.
Well, because they give you those things, or because the government gives you the right to exist now, right, doesn't mean it's a benevolent doesn't mean the patriarchy is benevolent because it is currently giving me these rights and I'm not like sitting and trapped in my house like I am in a different country.
What would make it malevolent?
What would make it malevolent?
Yeah.
I think in places like
I'm
like
talking about
Afghanistan,
here in the United States, which is a patriarchy by your own admission, giving you rights. What would make it malevolent?
I think that there are a lot of current things that are malevolent, like in legislation and things like that, that are, like attacks on bodily autonomy and like the overturning, like the Dobbs decision or the
But you would
overturning
consider
Roe v.
your
Wade.
First Amendment a benevolent right, your Third Amendment,
But
your Fifth Amendment.
I think these things are all inherent. Like I don't understand. Like just because it's written in by the government doesn't mean that it should inherently be.
It can't be
benevolent.
Listen, that's a contradiction. You can't say it's inherent and the government gives them to us.
No, the government.
That's a contradiction.
The government does, but it doesn't mean anything. Like we should already have these things. Like just like if I.
How do you have them? How do you have them absent a government?
Being. You should just be able to walk around and be free.
How? How do you have that without force? How?
I mean,
how is it even possible?
I think you're looking at it through a lens of like imperialism, and I don't think that like force was always necessary. It hasn't always been necessary to conquer other people.
Why do you keep saying I'm looking at it through a lens of? I literally told you my lens of force doctrine, explained it descriptively. It has nothing to do with imperialism. It has to do with this. You're walking around and there's no government. If you're walking around, there's no government. Where do your rights come from then?
Okay, this is just like such a silly question.
Please answer the question.
Okay, so if there's no government and I'm walking around, my right to be alive, my right to find a partner.
Can someone come around and kill? Can someone come around and kill you?
Yes, but in that case, there have historically always been ways of punishing people who take those away. So the people who take them away
You mean
are
like a
offenders.
government?
Hold on, just let her finish.
A government?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on, Andrew.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The people who take those things away from you, if they don't decide to take it away, it doesn't mean that they're good, right? So like, a really horrible example that for a lot of women is true is if I am a woman and I have not had intercourse with anybody and a man is my friend and he decides that he's not going to take my virginity from me, does that mean he is a good person inherently by not assaulting me? No, it doesn't, because that should be the standard, right? And so if someone comes in and they take it away and then they tell me that they can or they can't in the future, right? That's essentially to me what you're saying is just because the government is giving me the right to walk around and have this conversation with you today means that I should be thankful and I should, not be concerned with things, and that you guys are actually benevolent. The patriarchy is benevolent because I'm not in a cage, because I'm not being assaulted.
Yeah, that's not what's being said.
So that is,
anyway, can you answer my question though? If there's no government, where do your rights come from?
I think we've already been over this. I think you've asked me quite a few times.
You didn't actually answer listen, what you did was
I've already told you human dignity, so.
Well, human dignity, you can't account for dignity in a secular worldview. What is dignity? It's just whatever you think dignity is. So tell me this, real quick. You have rights. They're inherent.
Okay. Are you talking about legal, moral, or human? Let's omit legal, right? Because I'm talking about in a hypothetical
Literally
society.
any.
Okay, moral and human rights.
Yeah.
And for me, it's rooted in the philosophical natural law.
Natural
theory.
law is Catholic. You don't believe in Catholicism. You would have to have God to back up natural law.
Okay, but that is what I developed my beliefs around because I used to believe in God.
No, that's it. If you don't appeal to God for your natural rights, you're making a naturalist fallacy.
Okay, I believe in
That's a
God.
fallacious argument.
How do you know that I don't believe in God?
Because you told me.
Okay, well, I think this is like a really ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous? So where do you get your rights from if they're not from God?
Okay, so again, I still subscribe to the human rights theory, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If we're not going to go talk about God or naturalism, right? Which is that every human being has universal, inalienable rights that are fundamental to each person. And so this is what the UN subscribes to and stuff like that, regardless of whether there is a government in place or not. So is that sufficient to you?
No, that's an axiom. So all you're just saying is, I think we have inherent rights because I think we have inherent rights.
I think we have inherent rights because we are human beings who deserve to be treated with compassion, love, and respect. And I don't think you think that. So
yeah, but
that's pretty wild.
But the question comes in here. Let's say that a group of people doesn't believe in these inherent human rights, right? They don't believe in them.
I mean, there are definitely groups that have.
Yeah, they just don't believe in these inherent.
But for certain people.
Yeah, they just don't. So what is it that protects those inherent rights for you?
Well, you're right. There is typically like a system in place of
force.
It's not force per se.
All force, right?
But
name anything that's not force.
There's a way to isolate those people.
With what force?
I mean, not necessarily. Not
what
every
else could you isolate them with if they don't want to be isolated?
Well, not every arrest is made through force, right? Like they might.
Yeah. Well, actually, all arrests are made through the implicit threat of force. Either you come with me or else, right?
Sure.
So that would be force, right? You would agree with that? The implicit?
Yeah, I mean, just this inherent topic to me is very, just like violent and seems like a moot point. Like, but I mean, I feel like we've talked this through.
No, I haven't talked it through yet.
But you can continue. I mean, I don't really have much else to say on
I know,
this.
but
I've already clarified.
It's a critique of your worldview so that we can understand who you're appealing to for these so-called rights you believe everybody has. In this case, it sounds like you're banking on force from men to protect your rights. How are you not banking on the force of men to protect your rights if you say they're inherent, but all these inherent rights require force?
Well, also men is a generalization. I mean, again, there are a lot of people who are currently working to enforce the system of government that we have. It's not just men, but
they all rely on male force, don't they?
I just told you that wasn't true. I mean,
okay, can you tell me how that's not true? Like what agency of government doesn't rely on male force?
No. My point is it's not all exclusively men. There are men and women and everyone else as well that work to protect people here. Like in the army, it's not like if you're using force, right? The army isn't just male troops. So like you're saying male.
Yeah, there's women who aren't allowed in combat for the most part, almost ever, unless it's by accident, who are in the military as paymasters and things like this, but they're not the executors of force. There's not female armies being fielded to protect people's
like,
rights.
I'm not super interested in this line of questioning because it just seems like
Why
an
do you
inherently
think I care
misogynistic question.
if you're interested in it? I want to know the worldview.
I think you care because like it's your podcast and like I'm kind of ready
okay.
to
Well,
move
you know
on.
what? In your next argument, I'll just say, well, I'm just not very interested.
Okay.
Like,
then I'll
what
just
does that
talk
do?
about my
Like,
point.
what does that do?
Well, you're not really letting me talk or like, you know.
I'm just asking you basic questions. You refuse to answer them.